Sneaky, no good brother of yours, Curly.
Back the hell off, mister, before I blow your pumpkin right off your red neck. Turn back toward the Georgia line, leaving all the hope behind. Something happened to sister, got caught in between.
We'll start this video at Davis Fire Department in Dade County, Georgia. The Davis community in Dade County, Georgia. We're going to start driving north towards Coal City Hollow, which is right at the state line at Nickajack Lake. It's the furthest point that Davis Fire Department has to respond to. We'll leave this video of the drive running in the corner of the screen, and we'll explain why later. I've lived in Dade County my whole life, in the Davis community specifically, and I used to work for Davis Fire Department, worked there for 13 years. What most people don't know is that even as old as this country is, the border between Tennessee and Georgia is still in dispute. If you look at the law, it's settled at the 35th parallel. But if you look at a map, it's actually marked on a map as about a mile south of the 35th parallel. The state line issue came up around 1818 when the surveyors were surveying the northern border of the state. Now, they didn't mess up, but the charts that they were using were not correct. So they marked the 35th parallel about a mile south of where it should be. And it should have run through the middle of the Tennessee River, but it ended up being quite a bit shy of the river.
Away in the wilderness, this stone marking the border between Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama isn't the most impressive landmark, but it is becoming one of the most debated. University of Georgia professor James Kamak set the stone back in 1818, figuring it was the 35th parallel. Trouble is, using crude equipment, he was off by about a mile.
It's not really been a big issue until here lately when Atlanta started having water problems.
With Atlanta's drought rising to level 4 and lake levels at her two principal water sources receding, local area governments have sprung into action to restrict water use across the metro area.
Now that Atlanta needs water, it is pushing hard to get the state line put back at the 35th parallel. The reason being is that Nickajack Lake, which is part of the Tennessee River, would become part of Georgia.
In a loaner pickup truck packed with donated water for thirsty Georgians.
Time to go to the legislature.
I think people have to take this as a gesture of Southern political humor.
Mayor Ron Littlefield sent a message in a bottle to the legislators in Atlanta.
They have a serious problem. We have a serious problem. But reaching out to take in a portion of the city of Chattanooga and the state of Tennessee is not a solution to that problem.
Once delivered in Atlanta, the gesture was met with cordial responses and an equally strong message from Mayor Littlefield.
We're very happy to accept this water as a small down payment on the billions of gallons of Georgia water that flows from our creeks and streams into the Tennessee River every year.
Us visiting here is about as, we feel, is about as ridiculous as the Georgia State Legislature trying to reclaim a mile and a half of Tennessee.
Congressman Neal, will you pursue a lawsuit to settle the water dispute between Georgia and Tennessee? I didn't write the questions.
I don't think we need any wars. We need to win a few of the one we got in terms of water, and that is the water war we've had with Alabama and Florida that's been going on now for well over 20 years. I have a better way of solving that problem with Tennessee in terms of water. And for those of you who are familiar with our North Georgia, as you know, water that falls in North Georgia and goes into those TVA lakes actually does flow north and literally comes back down the river system back into the Tennessee River. So we have a claim to some of that water because it first of all fell on the state of Georgia itself. But I have a good friend who is Zach Wamp, who has been my congressman buddy across the line there in Chattanooga, and it's much better to negotiate in a friendly fashion.
Here we are crossing into Alabama. Now, this latest attempt to get to part of the Tennessee River, the state of Georgia passed almost unanimously. The premise behind it is saying that it's a compromise. They're saying they only want to take the mile-and-a-half section of Tennessee that has Nickajack Lake on it. That specifically would mean moving the state line at Dade County. This compromise sounds awful familiar to the compromise that gun grabbers always want to offer. They don't have something that they want to take. Since they can't get everything they want, they'll compromise and only take part of it. I'm not sure I see the compromise in that. Now, Georgia may have just cause to go after that section of land, but the word compromise really doesn't seem to fit, in my opinion. Now here we are at Bryant School, about halfway from the Georgia state line to the Tennessee state line. The Nickajack Lake is a large lake on the Tennessee River system. It was created when the Nickajack Dam was built. Atlanta's plan is that they want to tap the Tennessee River at Nickajack Lake, and they want to pump the water all the way to Atlanta to give them more water for the city. There's a few problems with this. Dade County is not exactly flat. This area is what they call sky hippie country. We have two mountains that cut through the middle of Dade County. There's Sand Mountain, which is where the Davis community is, and there's Lookout Mountain. You see a lot of hang gliders that jump off Lookout Mountain, and it's also known for Rock City, where there's a overlook where they say you can see 7 states from that point. This creates a serious logistical issue. The mountains being where they are isolate the county from the rest of the state of Georgia. It's routinely known as the independent state of Dade, although there's a lot of fake historical reasons for it. It's pretty much called that because you can't get from Dade County to the rest of the state of Georgia without going into Tennessee or Alabama to drive around Lookout Mountain. Now there's roads across now, but they're really windy pig trails and make it a little complicated to get to Walker County and on towards Atlanta. So the plan to pump water from Nickajack Lake into Atlanta would require pumping up and over Sand Mountain and then pumping it again up and over Lookout Mountain. I guess from there it would be downhill and flow on its own. But that's still a pretty big logistical nightmare to pump water. The pull-off right here is the first real good viewpoint you can get of Nickajack Lake. So here we are crossing into Tennessee. There's really no reason to move the state line. One of the things people in Atlanta don't see is that there is a creek that runs into Nickajack Lake, that running off Sand Mountain. That creek crosses the state line 500 feet before it runs into the lake. All it really needs done is for the state of Tennessee to give permission for Georgia to dredge that creek so it will backfill and they can pump out of the creek on the Georgia side of the line. Here we are at the foot of the mountain where we can finally get a good look at Nickajack Lake. Up here on the right is Nickajack Cave. which is a swimming area that most people around here grew up swimming at. Now, it wouldn't be part of the land that they're trying to take, but around a half mile up the road from it is where you would cross into the new Georgia state line if Georgia got their way. Somewhere around here would be the state line. And anything from here to the next mile and a half down this road would have to be covered by Davis Fire Department or a new fire department built down here. Plus the sheriff's office and forestry from the other side of Sand Mountain. If you turn right here, you're turning towards Coal City Hollow. The only thing that would be inside this new area would be this church and the boat ramp right here. There are no houses in this area until you get to where the state line currently is. Here we are at Coal City Creek that I was explaining that could be pumped out of. A couple of 100 yards on up the road to the state line and the area that is currently part of Dade County. As you can see, it's a pretty long drive from even the closest fire department, much less anything else in Dade County. Now, Chattanooga has been talking for a long time with Atlanta wanting a high-speed rail built between Chattanooga and Atlanta.
It's much better to negotiate in a friendly fashion, and they have some things that they want, namely a rapid rail, high-speed rail connecting Atlanta to the Chattanooga airport, and if we work cooperatively on projects of interest to them, I think we could also work cooperatively on the issue of water supply.
I don't know the reason this fell through, but it's always being talked about and never being done. There's also talk of a bypass on the interstate around Chattanooga, and say tunnels and all different things come up. But it's always talk. Now, what Atlanta needs to do is offer something to this area, to Tennessee and Dade County, instead of just telling people what they want.
How fast was he going, officer?
He was doing over 90, Your Honor.
Your Honor, that's a 1966 Volkswagen. It won't do over 70 going downhill.
Now, you sit down, mister. I see he has a tail light out.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Well, I I've heard enough. You can get down.
Thank you.
Guilty of speeding and guilty of driving with defective equipment. That's $75 on the speeding and $75 on the tail light. And $75 court cost.
What? I haven't even got a chance to testify.
Where are you from, boy?
Texas, Your Honor.
Ah, Yankee, huh? Well, I think you'll find that folks obey the law hereabouts, boy. Now, you sit down before I get you for contempt.
I don't even have that kind of money.
You got a credit card?
Well, master charge.
We'll take it. See the clerk.
I believe if we offered to reciprocate fishing licenses where people in Georgia can fish the Tennessee River and other waters in Tennessee, and giving Tennessee residents the right to fish in the waters of Georgia, which include the ocean, and then ask permission to dredge the 500 feet of Coal City Creek between the state line and Nickajack Lake. That would fix the water problems, and the state of Tennessee wouldn't feel that they were losing anything, which would be more of a real compromise than just taking.